Hi, my name's Mary Jo Fishburne. I'm a functional medicine physician, and my special love is the musculoskeletal system. I enjoy doing hands-on work with osteopathic manual therapies and acupuncture, and I love to help people feel empowered in their ability to work more proactively with their bodies. And a lot of what I end up doing is coaching people on posture. I'm going to start by telling you a story. When I was 16, I was in the church choir. I grew up in the Catholic Church, and the church choir faced the congregation. We sat in a group on hard wooden benches without any support. And while we sang, it was very active, and when we weren't singing, there was a lot of other usual church activity managed by the priest who sat to the left of us, or who was at the left of us. And early on in my experience with this singing in the choir, I noticed at the end of the service that my back would be killing me. And I used to end up sitting like this while I was waiting for the priest to be done so that we could sing. I figured after a couple of Sundays like that I wasn't going to be, that something was wrong, that at 16 I shouldn't have back pain. And I figured it had to do with something with the way I was sitting. So I started to play with my posture at that point. And the way that I did it was to move very, very slowly. I didn't want to call any attention to myself while I was exploring this. I was in front of a congregation, and so I started to isolate each segment of my body individually. And I started with my pelvis. I isolated moving forward and back to see where the middle was. So I started with looking at the extremes of the range, back and forward, back and forward. And I noticed as I did that as I was moving here, my head would move as well. That somehow my head was staying over my pelvis in some respects, but it was in relationship to what was happening here, it was also moving. So that was my first indication that what's happening in one part of the spine is affecting another part. I also noticed, because I was on a hard wooden bench, that there was a flat spot, a bony kind of platform on each side of my pelvis that was very clearly identified as I was rocking back and forth. So if I went too far back, there was an edge, and if I went too far forward, there was another edge, and if I was in the middle, it was a flat spot, and that told me, that's where my pelvis is in neutral. And it turns out, I later learned that was the ischial tuberosities. Those are the sit bones. And if you're square with those, your pelvis is pretty much in neutral. From there, I started to play with what happens to my ribs. Where should I be in terms of my ribs in relationship to my pelvis? So I tried to keep my pelvis still and my shoulders still and just moving my ribs. And if you think about the ribs as a bell jar, as like a structure that has an opening at the bottom and a top where your head is, but that opening on the bottom, if it's too far forward, you're really arching your back. And it ends up that opening is in front of the pelvis, the bowl of the pelvis. If you're too far back, it falls behind the bowl of the pelvis. In the middle, you're over the bowl of the pelvis. And that was what I ended up as the neutral point for my ribs. Then I noticed in terms of my shoulders what was happening with that. So I started to move my shoulders forward and back. I noticed that if my shoulders came too far forward, my head would have to come forward. If I got my shoulders over my pelvis, my head would naturally fall over my pelvis. If I got my shoulders too far back, my head would cantilever forward, and that would be a strain. It was very uncomfortable, and it would really affect my voice if I tried to sing from that. The next and last piece was what was happening with my head. And if you imagine your head as like pigeon movement, moving it forward and retracting back, forward and back, you'll notice that what I noticed was that if I got it too far back, it affected my voice. And if I brought it a little bit forward, then my voice was okay. And I remember all of this was happening while I was periodically singing. So I was getting a lot of positive feedback information about what was supposed to be happening. Because if I was sitting like this, if it was time to sing, I would automatically sit up because there's no breath support for singing here. And as I was starting to really appreciate how various aspects of my posture was influencing my vocal quality and the tension in my neck, it gave me a lot of information. At some point, all of a sudden, things kind of clicked. It was like all that tension I was experiencing in my body just went away. I found the sweet spot. And so I thought, oh, this is it. This is where I need to stay. Except the longer I tried to hold that without moving, the tighter everything got. So I discovered that actually what this balance place is a place of rest. If we can come back to a posture neutral after we're moving that is balanced, then we're in good course, we're in good shape. And the idea is not to keep any one position, including sustained head turns for any one position, but to try to keep things in balance as we're moving through our life. If you're having difficulty with this, or as you're trying, you're noticing unexpected pain or limitation, I'm here to help you. I'm helping lots of people with this, and I would enjoy working with you. So in the meanwhile, play with this. Let this be a way to inform you about how to be more at ease in your body.